Hello, I'm Dave Kelly, and a little while ago, I got to have a conversation with a doctor and two psychologists who are all specialists in the area of young adult anxiety. That conversation is available on the Lionheart and Girl Power Hour websites. At the end of our formal chat, we couldn't help ourselves. We kept going and ended up in a really interesting conversation around technology and young adults. Fortunately, the cameras were still rolling. So, is technology getting in the way of your family? Do you have someone who stays in the basement online all day? How much has COVID increased all of our use and possible misuse of our devices? Here with me are Dr. April Elliott, MD, Paediatrician and Adolescent Medicine Specialist, Raechelle Paperny, Ph.D, Registered Psychologist, and Danelle Spence, Registered Psychologist. I hope you enjoy. Okay, time for bonus material. Did I miss anything? Does anyone have anything on a sticky or on a piece of paper that you wanted to say that we didn't get to?
You know what I didn't mention were my basement boys. Did I talk about that? Because we didn't talk about gender, which is fine. But one of the things that is a phenomenon is the basement boys that I've been seeing, because for so long I only worked with teenage girls and young adult women. And the basement boys are those boys that, hey, it's great. They're off busy. Everything's good. That's what boys do. They go down and they game, or they, go on the computer. And, it was so sanctioned during the pandemic that they really stayed down there and were reinforced for staying down there. And there was a lot of even our transactional stuff. You didn't go to a grocery store, you didn't go to a restaurant, you might not even have come up and had a meal. There was Uber Eats being delivered, there was Amazon packaging arriving on doorsteps. And, these boys already had a predisposition to not being relational and emotionally aware of themselves, and that was really stalled. And so there's that, they just need to be resocialized, and there's a lot of phobia and resistance to that, and parents are just going, what do I do?
Mm-hmm. And to go on to the tail end of that, I believe, and this is just one of my theories, is that interactive screen use is become very problematic. And it was ironic that we had a paper that came out just at the beginning of the pandemic talking about screen use and how, a young person and their parent comes in and how do you help them with that? And then all of a sudden pandemic came and it's like, that's all you're doing. You're just on screens. It's being endorsed in every aspect of your life. You're not even allowed to go meet your friend. You got to have a Zoom or a gaming with them. And I think that was endorsed. And so now, you have to reintegrate back into the real world. We already had the young people that were having those concerns, and now there's so many more. And I think that more families are like, how do we help our young people get off of this? 7.5 hours was was a study done in 2014. The average time kids were on cell phones and phones. Now it's exponential. And so I think that's another thing coming forward is how do we regulate, not just youth, but parents, how do we regulate this better going forward? Because we're addicted. So that's a whole other topic to discuss.
And that's, if I get a young person in my office and they're there for anxiety or a mood disorder, I look at sleep and I look at screen time, because the study shows that more than an hour and a half outside of school and work of social media or scrolling actually activates more depression, more anxiety, more suicidality. And the fact too, that so many more teens are coming in with ADHD diagnoses, which I find some are tried and true for sure, but some are also screen time related, right? The inability to concentrate and focus. It's, and then their marks go down, and then their self-esteem goes down, and then they become it becomes this whole big ball of everything. Like screen time is significant.
And then girls particularly vulnerable for the social media effects. Like, it is insane. As you said, April, was prior to the pandemic, it's way worse. Now, I was talking to somebody who's doing makeup on grads this year, and she said they've never objectively been more put together. And yet they just can't stand themselves. There's a body dysmorphia because they're looking at all these digitally altered images of social media personalities, TikToks, Instagram, and they don't like anything about themselves. And she's going, wow, like she's not a therapist, but she just said, I've never seen anything like this that is so disconnected from reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think, I'm just going to throw a little bit of clinical in here, is that somatic symptoms and related disorders, which are anxiety-based, one of the related disorders are body dysmorphic disorder. Mm-hmm. And so you layer in technology and these messages and anxiety, bang. You don't, for kids, you might have toys lining up. Maybe for young teens, you have the perfection that needs to happen here and other places. And so it's so complex. And this is a whole other youth power hour.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so that's really compelling. And I know for me, it's exactly how you say, and I have a son and a daughter, and they're falling exactly where you're talking about. But then what do you tell people? If you say, all right, this is what my kids used to do. If John had a choice between almost anything on earth and gaming, he'll pick gaming 99% of the time. So do I just say no, shut it off, let him have his tantrum and let him figure it out, or what do I do?
You sit as a family and you go, let's do a reset. Like, let's not shame John, right? Like, let's look at a family and go, okay, we need a reset. We're coming out of this pandemic. And then you look and you go, okay, you're playing Mario Kart for 8 hours a day. Let's knock it down to 6. Let's knock it down to 5. And I always think of, let's not take away the technology necessarily. Let's just think about what the technology is taking away from them. Being outdoors, being with actual friends. Like, what is technology taking away versus what is it doing? Right.
I like what you're saying, Danelle, because so often it says all or nothing. Parents get panicked by what they're seeing, and then it just drives the relationship apart. It's at the cost of the relationship to save your kid from the dangers of technology. And you should never put anything at the risk of losing the relationship. So it's really about reframing. And as you said, maybe these incremental steps, not this all or nothing, no technology, and it's a punishment and all that kind of feel about it.
I see so many parallels with internet or screen use, or however you want to say this, interactive, problematic use, is that it's like eating disorders. You can't take food out of someone's life. You need food. You need to sort of retrain their relationship with it. You have to have food, and hopefully food brings you joy sometimes too. And so it's the same with screens. We couldn't do what we're doing here today without screens. We couldn't, the things that make it helpful are also sometimes in excess that can make it unhelpful. And so it's about families. I love that. It's about families making a plan together and holding each other accountable. Man, I'm running workshops around these things for families. And it's usually the youth that are saying, I don't want my dad on the phone anymore when we're having good family meals. He's always on the phone, or mom's always checking Facebook, right? And so it's actually the youth that want some change. And so families need to come together and make these plans together and hold each other accountable. And that can be super fun too. It doesn't have to be punitive.
Yeah. Well, gosh, you just nailed something too. The family dinners, where have they gone? Right? Like, I know the kids have so many now because things have opened up. There's more overscheduling and there's lots of activities, and it's difficult. But ensuring 2 times a week, you sit as a family and phones far, far away, and you just connect and you establish and create and strengthen a good relationship with your kids, where you talk less and you listen more, right? But that time together, there's lots of research behind the positive impact of family dinners, even if it's twice a week, 3 times a week, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a real need there, in whatever form you can have it, for some sort of mindfulness recharging component, because our lives are not going to slow down. They are so fast. And so we need to put something in there. And, my kids are grown, but I did drag them to meditation workshops. And at first they liked parts of it, but weren't practicing. And I was just talking to my daughter today that's reading her licensed clinical social work exam today in New York. And I said, good luck. She goes, I'm just meditating. I'm like, win. So yeah, that was if what we model, April, like how we use technology, or if we recharge ourselves and do self-care and put these stops, these disciplines in our lives, it really does make a difference because they're watching.
I can't agree more.
Yeah.
I'm just writing all this down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go upstairs to Blythe and go, guess what I know? And I'm not going to give any of you credit. I'm going to pretend like I just learned this. That's great, though.
Dave, if you want, you can always just think when things are getting really heated, you see a stop sign in front of you. And it's stop, take a breath, observe how you're feeling, and then proceed. But I will say that's what I do, especially when that amygdala is firing. I just see that stop sign and I help my children as well. Stop, take a breath, observe, and then proceed. And I think that can help so many conversations proceed in a better way.